One of the cool things about Muscle Car of the Week is that the online versions allow people to leave comments about the cars that they've seen on the show. And when we get a chance, we like to take a couple minutes to respond to some of the comments, maybe answer questions or clarify things about the cars or episodes of Muscle Car of the Week. So this week, we're taking a minute to address a kind of a common theme of some of the comments that we've been getting on some of the cars featured. And the theme of the comment is that, hey, we watched the show, we like the show, we really like this particular car, but we noticed that it might be smoking out of the tailpipe, or it's dripping coolant, or it's got some kind of issue with it, and we thought that these are all, like perfect cars. Well, the reality is the Brothers Collection is full of cars. As you can tell, we've done well over 170 episodes at this point. And each one of these cars has a slightly different story. Some of them are perfectly original, correct, as we say, unmolested cars that they're just old cars. Others have gone through partial restorations or have been maintained over the years. And still other cars have gone through complete restorations and are essentially brand new. And sometimes we see situations where a car might have been perfectly restored from an appearance standpoint, but never driven. And part of the fun of doing Muscle Car of the Week is we drive the cars. So a lot of times we're subjecting these cars to driving around the building and doing a little burnout here and there, and the car might not have been set up to do that kind of stuff yet. So recently we showed a red 1967 Coronet RT with a 426 Hemi, and some sharp viewers noted that it was dumping some coolant out from the radiator. And I think the story there is that this car had had a fresh coolant fill, but it really hadn't gotten warm yet. And if the car gets hot, sometimes it'll burp coolant out, and a lot of these cars never had an overfill canister, so they would end up leaking coolant. And it's not the greatest thing for us to be able to, to show a car that's leaking, but sometimes those shots kind of slip in. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to share a couple other behind-the-scenes elements of some of the cars that might have had a small hiccup here and there. We featured an Indian Fire Red Mustang, and while we were doing some driving footage on that one of the exhaust tips actually decided to come loose. So we had to work around that. Another little behind-the-scenes insight was the Dodge Daytona Superbird, the B5 blue car. And this thing has a beautiful restoration on it. The car just looks fantastic. But it had two little challenges to shoot around while we were doing our episode. And one is that the brake lights on one side decided to fight us. There was something funky with the connector. We just couldn't get the bulbs to seat. So we didn't show any shots of it with the brake lights on because one side was dark. But another one was that the brand new exhaust system on the car had an internal baffle come loose while we were doing our driving shots. And this happens. It doesn't indicate, necessarily the quality of the restoration or anything, but sometimes the baffles inside a muffler will break loose and they'll flap and they'll make some terrible noise. So we did some driving shots of the car, and if you notice the way we edited the piece, we kind of cut out of the exhaust sound before you could hear that baffle. But boy, did it sound bad. Just listen to this. So by and large, the cars in the Brothers Collection, for the most part, are very, very nice cars. But some of them do have a couple of secrets. Maybe they drip a little oil. Occasionally we'll show a car that is blowing a cloud of smoke out the back, either because it had some oil sitting in the cylinders or being stored, or the pipes were actually rusty inside. And we've got a couple famous shots of Mopars blowing out brown and even pinkish smoke from literally blowing rust out the back. But that's just the nature of the beast when you've got a lot of cars that unfortunately can't be driven every day. But that doesn't mean we're going to stop driving them. And we appreciate the feedback. If you see something interesting or something that doesn't look quite right, you're free to let us know in the comments. On a recent episode, we showed a 2012 Ford Boss 302 Mustang. Very cool, but unusual for us to show a late model performance car in Muscle Car of the Week, and we knew we would get some feedback on that car. And by and large, most people thought it was pretty cool. Some people flat out didn't like it. This wasn't the first late model performance car that we have shown. On an earlier episode, we showed a yellow ZL1 Camaro, which was one of the pre-production engineering cars. And of course, like most of the cars in the Brothers collection, there is a special story behind each one of these things. It's not just like it was an off-the-shelf, brand new 2012 Mustang. That particular one was called a tooling tryout car, and it was one of 12, actually the very first of 12 serialized to be a pre-release car. So if you see a late model car, it's because it is significant in some way, but we might show you a couple more as we do future episodes of Muscle Car of the Week. And as we shoot this particular episode, we're towards the end of the summer, which means it's time to preview the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. And this is an event where you can go, it's in Chicago, and see a lot of these cars up close in person. As of today, the Brothers collection is still a private collection, but every year they send a couple cars at least to the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals, and it's open to the public. It's at the Donald Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois, and it's going to be held November 19th and 20th of 2016. And I recommend to everybody who likes muscle cars to go to this event, because here you'll see real legitimate Hemi cars, shotgun 429 Mustangs, Z16 Chevelles, all of the pinnacle type cars that we show you on Muscle Car of the Week. There are versions owned by other people who bring them to this event from all over the country. It is by far the pinnacle muscle car show in the world. And this year, we've got a special treat coming from the Brothers collection. It's a car with a significant history and a very significant driver. It's a 1969 Ford Torino that was built largely by Ford as a factory-backed race car to compete in the 1969 Pikes Peak Hill Climb event, and it was driven by Bobby Unser. And the car remains today as it was back then. It ended up winning the event, and the car will be on display at the Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals, as will Mr. Unser himself. And we're slated to get an interview with him to have him tell us the story behind this very cool car. But that is one of the many attractions that you can see if you go to the Muscle Car and Corvette Nats. There's a long list of other cool attractions, as there are every year, including a whole display of muscle cars that came from the factory with sunroofs, things you don't see every day. They've got another collection of Shelby cars that'll be on display. They've got a special invitational display of what we call Day 2 cars. And these are cars that are from the late 60s and early 70s and are wearing modifications that occurred back then. So the line Day 2 comes from, you bought the car on Day 1, you threw some performance parts on it Day 2, and these are all period correct performance parts displayed on these muscle cars. Another display making its return is the very popular Barn Find and Hidden Gem display, and these are cars that are sometimes quite literally just dragged out of a barn, not even washed, but put on display because they are a significant or a very rare muscle car. And it's neat to see them in their well-worn condition. Some of these cars go on to get restored, but the Muscle Car and Corvette Nats makes room for these special cars in a special display. Returning again this year is a display of pure stock drag racers, and these are cars that appear to be factory showroom correct, but run a lot faster than they ever did right off the showroom floor. These guys run these cars hard, and it's neat to see those on display, complete with rubber all over the quarter panels. There's going to be a big block first generation Camaro display, Boss 351 Mustang Invitational. Something for everybody will be on display. So you want to go to their website at MCACN.com and make your arrangements, and we will see you there in November. So as always, we appreciate you taking the time to watch Muscle Car of the Week. We certainly hope you enjoy the show. It's a tremendous honor for us to be able to share these cars from the Brothers collection with muscle car fanatics all over the world. And if you have any comments, feel free to post them underneath the video wherever you see this online. You can also go to our website at MuscleCarOfTheWeek.com, and we've got a forum there where you can share your thoughts, and you can sign up for our email newsletter, or of course like our Facebook page, and we share comments there as well. See you next time with another cool car on Muscle Car of the Week.